And
one of the topics that we're discussing tonight
is
how you can disagree with people.
yes, and
still be
so let me just say, so first of all, welcome to the Bishop and I. Obviously, he's the bishop, I'm the I. As I always say, man, you are such a good dude, man. Happy New Year to you, bro.
Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
New Year.
New Year, yeah. Happy New Year to you. Don't say New Year's because I'm getting that posted about you on Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
That's on there.
Man,
You know
I do that
what's
all
a
the time.
bigger pet peeve for me?
What?
When someone died and people say,
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
You're lost.
Yeah,
With the T.
Yeah.
with a T on
You're,
the
you're lost. Yeah.
I guarantee you, whoever said New Year's says the chicken pops.
Chicken pops.
Same person.
So man,
I guarantee they say Valentine's with
back with the air. Well, let's since we got two crazy individuals, ain't no sense in trying to keep me. This is probably going to spin out of control. There's a good chance that this is going to spin violently out of control. I got two of the craziest dudes that I probably know in my life right now, and this is my homeboy. I've known Chaz since 1987. So we got a cool 88-ish.
We're going on like 30.
Going on 31 years I've known him. We used to have basing contests in school. That's what we did. We talked about each other bad all the time. We talked about everybody. That's all we did every day. We've been doing this.
We've been through some stuff. We've been through some stuff.
Chaz got one of our Chaz was he was a victim of police wrongdoing early in life, but that's a whole nother issue. And this is my brother Drew. I've known Drew for about 20 years ish, right around 20 years. 1999. I was his barber for many years. He was in the Navy. I'll let you guys, if you want to, just kind of Chaz, if you want to start, just give a little bit of like who you are, and some things that you think people might want to know about you, man. Introduce yourself.
You guys are doing yourself.
Yeah. That's what we do, man. That's what we do.
It's Kirkland.
Yeah.
That's a
We
shame.
usually like to
I know, you know,
peel the
I was about to
paper
say.
off, but it's okay. Costco's okay for that. So, man, I'm going to tell them a little bit about yourself, bro. If you could just real quick introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Chaz Hines. I'm originally from San Diego. Moved out to Arizona about 15 years ago. Like you said, we've been friends for 31 years. Let me just take this time to say something about this man. I don't know anybody in the world like more real, and not just like real in the street sense of real, but I mean more authentic. This man does like real work. He doesn't do huge work. He doesn't do. He's not paid for the work that he does. He doesn't get a lot of notoriety for the work that he does. But I don't know anybody whose like daily goal is to do the kind of work that he does. And all the way in Arizona, when I'm going through things, I can call him in the middle of the day, in the middle of the night. Just recently, I was going through something, and the dude can, just with a few words, with a question, like change my entire course. So, man, I just want to tell you, like, I love you, man.
Love you too, bro.
Real talk.
Yeah, on the road. Wow.
Great dude.
I didn't ask you for that. I appreciate it. I'm embarrassed now.
13 people, I think.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm embarrassed, but thank you. That's great. That's yeah. And it is Chaz. Chaz or Chaz. ERA, either way. He goes with both. He has multiple personality disorder. So I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I don't know who this guy is that's sitting right here right now. I don't know who. I guess he's this is his.
I got the glasses.
You're right. This is his public persona. Maybe he would. But
They're not even prescription.
They're not even readers.
No.
They just
They're the ones on the wall in Walmart.
Yeah. Garbage.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you look slick.
In the comments, tell me how do I look? Tell me, do I look more intelligent wearing your glasses?
Well, they can't see you. You should be sitting up against the blinds.
You look like the 46.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we should probably switch spaces. You know what I mean? But welcome, Chaz, man. I appreciate you being here, coming all the way from Arizona. And man, he logs in every week. He said, "That's Jason." He looked professional tonight. Who, me or Chaz? Chaz looked professional. Do I look? I think she's talking about you.
You got the Harvard shirt on.
Well, I got this from my homeboy Jerome Harrison, Jordan Jerome. This is he's a graduate from Harvard, and this is a shirt that represents the minority students at Harvard. And I asked him for this a while ago, and he got me one. And I just want to say shout out to Jordan Jerome Harrison. That's my guy right there. Love him a lot. He's doing big things, and he's a major part of the leadership at Reality Changers here in San Diego. And he's extremely committed, very smart, sharp young brother, whatever, that deserves everything that he's going to get. So shout out to Jordan Jerome Harrison for the shirt. Thank you, brother. So this is my brother Drew. We've been through a lot in 20 years. You want to talk a little bit of this, introduce yourself? And
Drew Phillips. Been friends with Jason since 99. As a matter of fact, one of the locals. I was here in the military, and I got out and decided to go to undergrad here. And Jason was one of the first friends that I had made that actually, people actually lived here in San Diego. And I told him this on numerous occasions. He's probably one of the most influential friends, and our friendship has probably, the most influence on the, direction and course of my life because, I met him when I was in junior college, even though I was motivated to do, to stay and do what I wanted to do, Jason was always there. When I had the opportunity to go to McMurray, he drove cross country with me, ran into some issues. He helped me, navigate all that, fix it, and get all that done. So,
and when you say he ran into some issues, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And what happened in Eau Claire, Wisconsin was insane. But
right.
We won't. Yeah.
Yeah. But, like I said, it's always been, just the greatest friend you could ever ask anybody.
So y'all are supposed to be talking about yourselves.
For me,
you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna need y'all to not.
Okay.
This is not my show.
Well, I was just giving them context.
Embarrassing me, bro.
I was just giving them context.
Embarrassing me. I need to move that microphone so they can see my little arms.
I
got medium sleeves. It's an extra large chest with a medium sleeve.
I have a degree in politics from McMurray Small School, Illinois, and I try to stay abreast of all the social issues and stuff like that, and I'm somewhat active in social media when I try my best to kind of share with my very diverse group of friends about my take on things, right? Because the only thing I know I have really good experience in is being black for 40 years. So
yeah, that's real. That's real.
But each one of us can look at one situation and pretty much assume how it would have gone if they was black. Period. And that's just a superpower black folks have, right? So it's just I try to be objective in a lot of things and give my opinion on a lot of things too. But I try my best to be mindful of everybody else and be relative and not absolute and that sort of thing. So the fact that I was even invited to come here and share my 2 cents is enough for me. And I look forward to contributing. So that's me.
I'll just say the conversation that we want to have tonight, I think is important, and I think it's a good way to kind of go into the new year. We have some very incredible conversations of the same type of things that you and I talk about, Bishop. And it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamics play out with the way that we talk now tonight, on how the conversation goes with you two that probably share a lot of the same views in these particular issues, and your way of expressing them is a little different. And that's what I'm excited about, because I think there may be something controversial today. But before we even get into the conversation, I posted something earlier, and I just wanted you to kind of maybe give your take, if you want to, about the event that happened earlier today that you went to. Are you okay talking about that?
Yeah.
So if you guys all know, Michael Bloomberg came to San Diego today, and he was at he's a presidential candidate, came into the race like at the 11th hour and 59 minutes, came in. And so, many are saying that he's a detractor, like he's a distraction candidate, just whatever. And so see you all later. One of the things that well, you got a chance to be there. You got a chance to go. So I just want to ask you, Like, how was it? How was the event today? You actually were invited to go, and what happened, I guess?
Oh, well, it was an event at Wendy Wheatcroft's house. She's former president of Monster Man Action. Every town, of course, was there. San Diego's for gun violence prevention, and others that have nothing to do with gun violence prevention. But you know that Michael Bloomberg is real big on that, on gun violence prevention and so on. He's one of the, I forget what they call it, some of the mayors of a lot of cities came together to address the violence in the cities and so on. Gun violence in the cities, and he took on the NRA. So that's why I guess that's how they got connected and had it there at her house. He was also at some type of veteran event earlier that day, and so on. And so the speech, typical speeches in the sense of, some of the things that he was talking about and was addressing and so on. And so, I had a chance to meet him and ask him a question. My question was about police reform, of course. And so, what he led me with the impression of is that, he see that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And the example that he gave me is that, and I haven't looked at that yet because I want to go back and look at that, but he did say that in New York City, they brought it down and they got it low as far as, and he acknowledged, black folks being killed, especially black people being killed by the police and so on. He said something needs to be addressed and be done by that. He said, in City San Diego with what they use there, New York, they brought it down low. And so I couldn't really address that piece on a comeback anything because I don't know. So in my mind, it's like, okay, let me go and look and see what I know I heard some bad things about New York.
Well, just real quick, because of that, he was a proponent of the stop and frisk. And so, and I looked it up because that's one of the things we talked about. Like one of the things that Bishop and I, one of the things I love about the relationship, he was like, hey, I'm going to hear this presidential candidate, hear him talk or whatever. And he's like, cool. And one of the things we talked about is the optics. And one of the things I told him, I was like, he was like, man, just don't take no pictures with the dude until we know. No, what I'm saying, until we know, make sure you know that he has it. Like if there's, because it could be extremely controversial for you or whatever. And so,
and I'm okay with that. My thing is when you talk about the stop and frisk with him, many people have confronted him at press conferences, and he had numerous opportunities to respond to that. Of course, we don't know what his sorry really means from that perspective. Is because it's political? Does he personally really mean that he's sorry and so on? But my thing was I wasn't going to waste the one question that I
absolutely
asked.
not.
Hey, what about the stop and frisk? We already know about the stop and frisk.
Good.
My thing is like, well, okay, we're moving forward here. What are you going to do in regards to police reform? Because that's one of the important issues that we have and so on. So, I'll continue to keep my eye out on him and keep him on the radar because there's already candidates that are already dismissed for various reasons. And when you talk about the race issue, when it comes to these candidates, all of them I don't know about all of them because you got about 16, 17 of them, but some of the top runners, they all got issues, if you ask me, as far as when you're dealing with systemic racism and some of the issues, even them being willing to address some of the things that are happening today.
Layla asked Bishop, how do they invite folks to the meet and greet? Do they send out a mass email invite page or just selected folks?
I believe it probably was selected folks because it was at her house. And she invited me personally because of the work that we do together in the community. We've been working together for about, 4 or 5 years or something like that. And I'm talking about these are white folks. And when we walk and knock in the community, things that we were doing through CAS, one part of CAS, they were there, even when black folks weren't there.
CAS is a community assistance support team.
So a lot of times people try to criticize them. And I understand, when you have a white organization that's coming into the community, things like that, people look at that. But my thing is that we need more, if the black folks don't like it, then where are you? You get out there, you get involved, you start doing it. And because we reach out to our community all the time, but then these are the people that shows up, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not just going to kick them to the curb and throw them away. You're going to work with them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. And they don't understand, and they admit they don't understand everything, but they want to work. And what can I do? So that's how I got invited, because I guess Wendy, know the work that we're doing and everything together for the past few years.
Let's kind of, for you guys, for both of you two, to add in your thoughts on it, just, and not necessarily Mom's Demand or Bloomberg, unless you understand those organizations and want to talk about that relationship. If you do, that's fine. But if not, how do y'all feel? And then we'll go into the question of how do you deal with people that are, you deal with white organizations that come into the community, and this kind of leads into the ability for us to work with people who disagree about stuff. How do we do those things together? And either one of you guys can begin. Whatever.
Absolutely, you go first.
I'm kind of disenfranchised when it comes to politics at large, and my answer or my thought process is probably pretty cliche. If you don't own the candidate, so to speak, then you have nothing coming. Like when you ask these questions, first of all, my first thought, as odd as it is probably if the answer is patented and rehearsed, it's BS. I'd rather see a candidate who you ask a question to and they look like deer in the headlights. They didn't know anything about it. You know what I'm saying? To me, I'm not saying I want a non-politician or whatever, but I'm just saying the answer is going to be rehearsed and practiced, and that is what it is. But bottom line, Black people as a whole don't get involved in politics at the level where they're giving money. Barack is a different situation, right? That was like grassroots, $5 from everybody. But if you're not giving to these politicians in large sums in organization form, then why would they, when they get elected, remember you? Why would they think of you? We don't have anything coming collectively because we don't organize and donate.
It's interesting. I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Claude Anderson, who wrote the book Powernomics and some other
the guy we were
books.
talking about the other day.
Yeah. Black Work, White Wealth. And we're going to actually do a book club on that book or whatever eventually. Did your books come in, by the way? Perfect.
Yesterday. No.
Okay.
What's today?
Sunday?
Friday.
So cool. So we'll begin probably next week. There's a few people that on social media said they want to get down. But one of the things that he talked about is the problem with Blacks in politics. Like you see like Black folks back in like the 1800s, I guess it was probably like, I don't know, I think he said 17 people or something. I don't remember what it was, but it's went up by thousands of percent by like the 80s or whatever. You have thousands of people that are in political positions as Black people now. But he said one of the problems with Black politicians and Black communities is that we don't require any quid pro quo from candidates. So he said he got to run education for the whole state of Florida, from preschool all the way to post-secondary education. And he said one of the things a presidential candidate or somebody came in and asked him, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. And he said, well, you need that, but I need 2 people in a particular position. And I need you to put these 2 people in this position. If you want this from me, then this is what I want from you. And he said, we don't do that enough. We just let candidates come in and say whatever they want to say to us and just do whatever. And then we just sit there and look like, well, how did this happen? Well, it happened because there's no we don't barter with candidates or whatever. So I think that's kind of one of the weaknesses that we have as a community. And then the people that do have the ear of the politicians, like Moms Demand, these white folks, like that's what they're doing. It was like, if you want our support, then we want this from you or whatever. But the Black folks, we just want positions. We don't ever ask for anything. Like we parade these candidates around the Black community and we don't ever get anything in return for it, except for maybe somebody becomes a janitor or one of the people that helps the politician put his or her jacket on. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's about the extent of what we get. And then we get a whole bunch more confusion and anger. So I agree with what you're saying.
I think though, but my thing, if you use Moms Demand Action as an example, as far as dealing with Michael Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg is one of the reasons why I believe every town and Moms Demand Action so really kind of like exist on the level that they exist, right? So there's already a connection there. And so most of the folks, even Moms Demand Action and some of the leadership and people that's part of that, not everyone has endorsed them yet. They still trying to figure it out too, what's going on. But at the same time, these people rally around folks that's already addressing and for their issues, right? And the problem has what I've been seeing, especially in when you come to the Black agenda and things like that, is that people don't even want to address the Black agenda. When people, like you're talking, when people get on that level of an elected position or whatever position it may be, they start going all these other different places, dealing with other different, when I say places, I'm talking about their agenda and their issues that they're focused on. They start focusing on other issues, not really focusing on our issues, or they'll play around. And I think like what we deal with in our Black communities, we allow ourselves, and when I say we, not everybody, but the way I see it as a whole is that we allow ourselves to be duped. you know what I mean, by politicians, even black politicians. And they make it seem like they're doing something for you, but they're not. And then when you want to call it on, they say, hey, don't be messing with that person. That's our candidate. We love him or her and so on. And so now you can't say nothing because people want to shut you down because you trying to call this person on.
Right.
Thing I appreciate about Tasha Williamson is that she told even Monica, like, hey, you know, we come for you. You won't get elected next time around if you don't take care of business and do the things that you do. Told her publicly this. But how many people would say those kind of things? They got mad at her because of what she went to the PSLN and shook things up. But that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? A lot of people want to push back and say, oh, no, that's Monica. Oh, no, that's whoever. But no, I don't care who it is. You know, if we talk about accountability, we got to start with our own and move up to everybody. We can't just over here and then let this person get a pass when they're doing something that's not right either, or not doing anything.
You know, it's interesting you should mention that because probably the biggest thing that I've seen, and I worked in politics senior year of college, and shortly after that, you know, where I'm from in Illinois, the biggest thing that I see in the black community is we're so, you know, excited to be involved in stuff or to be included in stuff. We say that, but in actuality, we don't even participate.
That's right.
Or if we do participate, we participate superficially, but we never do anything that actually gets into things and shake things up. See,
I agree.
I think the biggest issue that I've seen, you know, politically, as it relates to the black community, nobody else, is that quid pro quo is a big thing because something for something. I hate to say it, that's just the way it is. I mean, politics literally means the allocation of resources. That's literally what politics means. So what happens is when we put people into place who either look like us or represent our best interests, we have to hold them accountable. It's not just good enough that they got elected or they got put in this position. We now got to expect something from them.
That's right.
Because why work for someone that you can take for granted? Historically, black folks have been taken for granted. Historically, the Democratic Party take the black vote for granted. Historically, I mean, from the local level all the way to the national level, they take black folks for granted. And they only really speak out when something terrible happens and we see it in the news.
But why? Why is that? Why is that?
Because if you think about it, when do you have to address an issue? When that issue is relevant or pertinent. Someone gets choked out over selling cigarettes. All these white folks come on and talk about, oh, we need police reform. They've been killing black folks since the end of slavery. 100 years now. Consistently.
Yes.
But only when something bubbles to the surface, now it's an issue. Now we got to talk about it. And then they're going to tell you everything that they think that you should hear just to quiet you, just so they can continue to keep taking out your pocket and furthering their agendas. Because if you think about it, I want y'all to tell me one program, you can't say affirmative action, that has been designed to exclusively help black folks.
That's right.
Affirmative action wasn't even designed.
I was about to say, don't get me
But they package it. They package it as that.
That's part of the
That's why I
problem,
said you can't say affirmative action because we all know who benefited from that the most, right? But the thing is, black folks have always why? Because historically we've never held anybody accountable.
Good point.
I mean, think about it. Barack Obama was elected to president. What has he done?
Good example.
Specifically for the black community.
Nothing.
But but look how we are so emotional collectively. If you don't bring food to the potluck, you don't get to eat. Right.
Correct.
So as an analogy.
Right.
So, Bishop gonna preach on that Saturday. Sabbath is gonna get that.
We're infantile. And I don't wanna offend
Speak
anybody
freely.
out there,
We don't, man. We don't. It's okay.
But
We'll apologize after.
We're infantile. We're infantile almost in every walk. We are still post-slavery. Frankly, you saw it when those people came running out of Katrina, out of Louisiana. I didn't think people were still living like that in this country. We are infantile. Like you said, we get excited just to be mentioned. Right. We're still counting. We're still counting how many black this, how many black that after a black president.
Right.
And you can't look at Barack Obama. Now, you know, number one, I tend not to differentiate things and you get on me about that a lot, but when I look at Barack Obama and Donald Trump, I don't really see a difference in George Bush because it's not even racism. I mean, it's classism. And again, if there's not a dog in the race for them, if there's not money being pumped into these campaigns by black folks, black groups, you're not going to get addressed. It's not how it works. And we're so scared of quid pro quo as if it's a bad thing. You do it in your house. You do it at your job. Kids do it on the playground. If you don't play with my rules, you're not using my ball.
Period.
A 4-year-old knows quid pro quo, but we don't know quid pro quo.
Period.
No, that's good.
Yeah, and increase, and I think in our community we have so many silos and we're fragmented, and it's so much divisiveness in the sense of issues, and that's in all communities of race. But I think in Black community we can't afford to be like other races in the sense of being so divided like that because it's so few of us. And not only that, but it's already, when you talk about a few of us, we're already overwhelmed by a racist system that comes up against us all the time. So we got to be on the same page on some things. And that's why I think, like, when you're talking about politics, when you're talking about accountability and us being that block vote, if everybody's voting Democrat, then we should have a block vote like, okay, who's addressing, with, like you said, our specific issue. When you talk about the Black agenda, who's specifically addressing our issue? And if you're not addressing our issue, then we're not voting for you. And once they understand and know that not only like the quick pro quo, but not only are they not going to get elected, but if they do get elected, they got to bring something to the table.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. I mean, how often? I mean, it's terrible when you every time you turn around, some young Black kid getting beat up by the police over what? Nothing. Most of the time, it's some nonviolence argument, and before you know it,
that was escalated by the police. Instead of being like, "Hey, young man, calm down," they're like,
"You know," and it's crazy. But when you read the comments, see, the comments to me is the biggest indicator of where we are as a society. Read the comments. Why? Because ain't nobody else gonna tap you on the shoulder and say you can't say that. That's impolite.
Right.
Read the comments on some of these. No.
Some people say that these comments are because people feel safe. I don't think that at all. I think these are legitimately what people think.
That's why I say the comment section represents where we are as a society as a whole. Now, if you think about it, being Black, yeah, we're number 3, 4 to 1. It's always been that way. Oh, well, police yourself. Hold yourself accountable. Don't be involved in something you shouldn't be doing. Period. And then, so when things do hit the fan, you should have expected that from the beginning because it always hasn't been fair for us.
Never.
I'll never forget the conversation I had with my dad. I was 12 or 13. Something didn't go my way that I really wanted, and I was real bummed out about it. And my dad was like, "Listen, you Black. Things ain't gonna go your way all the time. You're gonna have to work harder than your white friends for the same thing. So you might as well get that in your head now. You want to compete, be better than them, be twice as good." Work twice as hard, but don't expect them to be fair. So you gotta overcome that through work ethic, right? Hold myself accountable, being responsible for everything. And what I learned from that is that I ain't making no excuses for myself. I'm not. I'm going to hold myself accountable for what it is that I want. Period. And I'm not gonna accept or expect someone to do it for me. I'm gonna go out and get it myself.
Well, one of the things I think is I wanted to highlight a couple of things that Layla said is we need independent police oversight commission. Some of those things when you talk about like accountability, that's another thing that's really important. That a lot of the systems that we have are against Black communities too, and they have been, and they probably will forever be that way because it's in the DNA of America. Any people group that would subjugate others the way that things have happened in America, there is something wrong, like biologically in a sense. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to go so far as to say like a creation thing that was created as a devil and that. But I'm saying for folks, you cannot look at a people that are willing to subjugate others and continue to see it happening. We are past the point. I could see like in the 60s where before, remember, they said the thing that changed America and the world's view of what was happening to Black America was the March Across Selma to the Bridge. Yeah. When the cameras finally was there and they got a chance to show the world. Yeah. When that happened, it was like, dude, it opened up the world's eyes to see the type of things that were happening to Black
And
Americans.
who was beating up those black folks?
Police.
Thank you.
Police and
It wasn't the politicians
and the
who wrote
firefighters
that.
was doing it too.
Right.
Firefighters was spraying hoses on.
It was the local
Or,
authority.
or if people were being lynched, like people like to forget, who would be complicit? If people were being lynched and drug around the city,
Come
behind
on,
trucks,
man.
The local authority.
they'd have to be complicit in it.
Come on. That's
So
right.
what happens is the biggest issue is accountability. Who do you hold responsible?
That's right. That's
Well, who holds the people that's holding the people responsible?
right.
Can I ask you a question really quickly? Let me ask you this. Donald Trump, billionaire legend,
Mhm.
Bloomberg, isn't he a billionaire?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Today he has about $56 billion.
Bloomberg is financing his own
He
thing.
is.
He's
He said
buying
not taking
advertisements
special
all over the
interest and
place.
stuff,
Yeah.
How can he be
Yeah.
intrinsically?
Say that again.
How can he be intrinsically much different than Donald Trump or anybody
Rhetoric.
at that level?
Yeah.
What
How
comes
can
out
he
of his
be
mouth?
different? Donald Trump is like a character, but take away all that. How can his personal, political, social outlook, or any of them, why do we hold Donald Trump so different than we do George Bush? Because of their character, because of their antics. At core, they have to look at the world the same. They have to.
I think a lot of it though.
Good point.
Here's what I think is the biggest problem with Trump. If you look at the things that Barack, everybody, and I want to address one of Tasha's questions. If you look at all politicians at the end of the day, there is some. We don't have a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. That's not the way the government operates.
Right.
We put people in positions and then we let them just do whatever they want to do. And as long as the things that they do, we can't see it directly affect us, we won't say nothing about it. It's like whatever. But the thing I think that's different about Trump than everybody else is his decorum. To be able to say the things that he says from the dais, what other president have you ever heard in your life? I'm not saying it didn't
I think it
happen.
happened back in the day, but
I'm
never seen
talking
it.
about before you
Never
had
seen
people smoking cigarettes and calling people son of a bitch from the pulpit. I mean, from the dais and doing all that type of stuff, bro, and like saying that there's good people on both sides. Like to not come out and vehemently like condemn racism and all the things against other Americans as obvious, like his whole character. And that's why he's so problematic for a lot of white folks, because now there's white folks whose conscience is being conflicted. Like I see what he's doing now. I can no longer just be like, what do you mean it's not that bad for you? No, you see what's happening every single day. And you have to have like cognitive dissonance for you to be an average citizen that just watches his tweets. If you look at that man's tweets and the stuff he talks about, there's no way you can remain neutral. You have to make a mental decision about how you feel about Donald Trump. But no, I'm just saying, but that is the difference though. The difference is he is now saying son of a bitch, kill him, to hell. He cusses every single time he's at the pulpit, or not the pulpit, but the dais. And so, and it's just, he's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. And
do you think
that's part of the problem.
Do you think that white folks at large feel like that?
I think that yes. I think there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable. That here's the difference though. As long as somebody's not showing you outright how they feel, then you can sit back and just act like it's not happening. But when somebody comes out and shows you now you have to decide, okay, I saw what you just did right now. Even though that doesn't affect me, so now you're having to decide, and now you're seeing a lot of more white folks making like real clear decisions. Like now I can't really hide behind my racism. Like now for me to actually wear a Trump shirt, if you wear a Trump shirt now, if you walk outside with a Trump shirt on, you have already went through your mind like the stuff that he does is not that bad. You have looked at the things that he's done and things that he said, and you said you don't care.
Okay with it.
Okay, then
Well, I'm in Arizona.
That's
They're
my-
doubling down in Arizona. So I guess it's a regional thing, right?
Right.
See, I don't see that.
Right.
they don't like it, so they
My coworkers, none of them watching probably, but my coworkers, I'll walk through the job and they'll stop, and they love talking in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've doubled down.
So they real
That's
trust.
arresting. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he said. He couldn't say anything
Right.
bad enough.
Because you're giving them what they want. And that's what we're talking about at the beginning when we're talking about politicians and the quid pro quo. What is it? Quid
pro quo.
Quid pro
Which
quo.
means something for something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or this for that. Or
Exactly. And he's doing that. He's giving them what they want. And that's the bottom line with that. I just want to go back to Layla's, because I want to use that as an example of when she's talking about independent review boards, oversight boards.
Yeah.
But then she also mentioned, which I've been trying to raise a big issue on, independent prosecutor. And so those,
She talked about that too.
that should be one of the same thing, but it's not, right? Because when people here in San Diego talk about independent oversight, they're not talking about independent prosecutors, right? They're not even talking about giving, when they talk about giving independence, they're not even talking about giving that board independence to fire a police officer.
Right.
So whatever you're offering is bogus. And so the stuff they're pushing through the city council is bogus because it doesn't have that. It's not including an independent prosecutor, and it's not giving them the authority to fire folks, right?
But the black community loves it.
Exactly. That's the example I wanted to give. That's the example I wanted to give, and they really pushing it. And I'm like, but it seems what they're offering. You're not getting anything. And I know these people are smart enough, that's in politics, they were smart enough to know and look and see that, right? And even the police could look and say, still ain't nothing going to happen. We still going to do what we want to do.
Right.
You know?
But you know why, right? Because policy ain't going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
If it did, you know what would that do?
Think about that. Think about that. I mean, we're living in such a time, a sensitive time throughout history. Here we are, the first, we're post having a black president and all this other stuff, but has policy really changed?
Mm-hmm.
Are police officers actually being fired and
Right.
being held accountable for doing all the brutality and all this other stuff? It hasn't been any different.
Eric Garner, not guilty, right?
Everybody,
Nobody.
nobody. The only ones that they found is Muhammad Noor, the Muslim guy that shot the Australian white woman. He went to prison. Jason Van Horn.
What did her family get from the
got
city?
Got $1 million or
Bro,
something.
they got like 20 million.
Yeah, they got a lot of money. That Jason Van Dyke, the one that killed little Laquan McDonald, shot him about 8,000 times while he was in the street. He
running away.
Dummy was the only one that shot him, and I think they got the brother that they shot in the back.
The cop that killed the guy in the apartment.
Yeah,
the hug.
They got the hug in 2.5 years after time served. And now the city just told her. The city just told the Yarn family that we're not responsible for it.
We're not paying for that. Right. So I mean, you think about it. It's almost like, why would they care?
Or change,
If there's no one to
We're not
hold
contributing.
them.
We don't contribute.
Right. I'm telling you, like the easiest vote to acquire is the black vote. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
All we got to do is say, "Oh yeah, we're going to do a job. We're going to give you jobs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." Oh yeah, and Black Lives do matter. All the black people, woo, yeah. And then 4% of us show up to vote.
That's right.
Right. Tasha says there's a difference between Barack and Bush. Barack gave reparations to indigenous, Pan-Asians, veterans, Holocaust survivors. Bush 1 just gave a proclamation in Heritage Month. Bush 2 did nothing, actively ignored them. And so, yes.
Bush is just keeping it real.
Yeah, he just like, man, ain't nobody get nothing from me. Barack didn't give black people, he couldn't. Barack's not American descendant of slavery. He has a Kenyan father. He has a Kenyan father and a Caucasian mother. He has no familial blood that was born here in the United States. I believe he's a first generation. His grandmother's from Hawaii, so that's the United States.
Yep.
Not contiguous stuff.
And right. And so it makes sense that he's a bootstrapper. Barack Obama he may not feel that way personally, but that was definitely his public persona, that you should pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Gary says, all Drew has to do is pull up one of his Facebook posts. He has a wide range of points of view in his friends group who show the vast. Now,
different
perspectives. Yes. And so let's look at that real quick, just because that is kind of the point that we wanted to sort of make. So let's make sure that we make that point before we move on to the next one, which we'll let Chaz kind of get, because you made a really good point this week on your Facebook that I think needs to be talked about. But Drew, you absolutely, and Drew is kind of a different kind of brother. He goes on and he'll friend everybody whose name is Drew Phillips in all of America.
Yep.
You see like a gang and his friends list is Drew Phillips.
Yep.
It's all, and he got people that are, probably got Trump tattooed on their tongue.
Yep.
You know, that type of stuff. And they say a whole lot of stuff. What's up, John? I don't know if you're still here, but what's up, John? Talk about that, Drew. Like, how do you deal with, and then I want to hear from all of y'all, how do y'all deal with, I'm talking about not just, hey man, let's just agree to disagree. I'm talking about stuff that's like, that would get fire thrown on people is the kind of stuff that people say. How do you deal with that, Drew? what is your opinion on dealing with people who don't agree with you?
Well, quite honestly, I would say it's probably the virtue of dialogue, right? The very best thing to get from having an open discussion is you want to see and learn and hear other people's perspectives.
Okay.
You might not adopt those principles, but it's okay to know that they exist. Why? Because it allows me to kind of learn a little bit more about you. Now, the thing is for people who are enlightened or educated, or however you want to look at it, if I, let's just say me and you disagree on something, Bishop, I'm not saying that we do, but let's just say we disagreed on something. If I can't accept your opinion that's different, as valid as mine, that I'm important, that I have, then there is absolutely no point. Smart people can respect that and accept that. You know, like I think of myself as in, you know, just a relativist, like, you know, as far as, you know, theory and perspective and my, like, you guys could be into whatever it is you're into. As long as I don't agree, as long as I don't disagree morally, like if it's something that to me I just can't jive with on a moral level, right? You know, right and wrong, legal versus illegal. Right. But if it's not something that I don't disagree with morally, I'm okay with it because that's just a part of who you are, and I accept that.
Right.
Period. When you get, you know, the very virtue of diversity is for us to learn that about each other, because you're not going to have 100 people be on the same mindset and wavelength as everybody else. But we can all be on the same accord, though. We can all get all of our energy going in the right direction, constructively and productively.
How? If we disagree, how do we do that?
Well,
because you got folks that vehemently agree with Donald Trump on your page. How do you move forward with something like that?
So what you got to do is you got to be able to, you know, separate the emotion from stuff, because a lot of times we allow emotion to cloud our judgment, right? And me personally, I don't really care about stuff enough for it to affect me emotionally, right? If it don't affect me or my family, none of it, I just don't care enough about it. For me, politics is what I see on TV. I don't care what goes on in the White House. It's not going to change what happens under my roof. When that impeachment stuff came out, I posted something the very next day. Y'all going on and on about this Trump nonsense. Guess what? Life goes on. You still got to get up and go to work today. You still got to pay your bills. I don't care what's going on Capitol Hill. That should not affect how you run your household. Period. Right? And so, and man, you should have read the comments. Oh, I can't believe you, this and that, and this and that, and this and that. I never changed my opinion or perspective on that. I just got to remind people like, yo, politics should never change who you are as a person or how you treat other people. And when you allow it to do it, you got to take a good look at yourself. Because Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative, if you mean to tell me you're going to be a monster to somebody because you identify with this set of political beliefs, shame on you. Because at the end of the day, we all human beings.
So let me ask you this. And Layla wants to know, Drew, what do you think about Candace Owens?
What do I think about her? I mean, she's her own, you know, basket of issues. A lot of stuff she says I disagree with, but she's entitled to believe that. I mean, I don't, you know, a lot of stuff she says to me is kind of like, you know, on the fringe of like, really? Like, you know, because a lot of stuff she says is, it comes across as being calloused and kind of like out of touch with what's actually going on with Black folks today. But she says what she says. I'll listen to it. I might agree with some of it, but I might disagree with a lot of it. But my life still goes on, and I still got to do what I need to do and stay in my lane. You see what I'm saying? But, you know, one of the things that Candace Owens kind of believes in, which I tend to agree with, is you know, racism might be an issue, but that's not the biggest issue in the Black community.
Okay.
It's not.
What do you think is?
Accountability. Period.
What do you mean?
If we all have to be educated and be responsible for ourselves, why aren't we? Why don't we hold ourselves accountable to go out and get the education we need to compete professionally? Why don't we?
How would we?
By going to school.
Who pays for that?
Well, you can probably find a program that'll pay for it for you if you ain't got the money. Everybody can't do what I did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I joined the military.
Right.
That was real deal. I joined the service, but I also went to college for free.
Right.
You understand?
Did you have the bench press record on the Navy ship?
I was number 2.
Number 2?
Terry Rayford beat me, and that's true.
Okay.
Terry Rayford, built just like you.
Yeah.
Beat me.
So, and let's address that in just a second.
Okay.
Because that's all that I think that'll take us on. That might take us on a whole nother. Because that's so you're saying accountability, and I also remind me to talk about Dr. Claude Anderson's view of that too, because he speaks about that too. He speaks about something in line possibly with what you're saying. But Chaz, what do you think, man? Like, how do you deal with people that differ from you? Because you are off the chain on Facebook, and in a good way. But like, how do you deal with that?
I was thinking about this driving, and I could go on for an hour, but firstly, I think you have to make sure that the person you're talking to, debating, arguing, is intellectually on your level.
You're right.
Because I think that most of these people that we see on social media, I think that they have a certain view, but I think that they're so individually, I think that they're so stupid and essentially
Why don't you
ignorant.
tell us how you really feel, Chaz?
and essentially ignorant that I don't think that they take like proper responsibility for their view. Like, unfortunately, you don't have to have license to be on social media.
What you said.
So I don't argue with people. I don't, and forgive me for saying this, I don't think most people are as intelligent as me. And that's sad because I'm not that smart. But so, the people that I work around and live around, I don't think they really think a lot of the things that they think the way that they say they think them. I think they're just too ignorant to really express their views. And I think their views are a lot more juvenile and elementary than the things that they type or what we think they're typing. I know I'm all over the place, but so first of all, I won't have a conversation or debate with you if I don't think that you're on my level, so to speak. If I do, then like me and you have gotten into not horrible.
No, I get it. We disagree.
But we will vehemently disagree on something.
Of course, absolutely.
And we will be at each other like the couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that I need to think what you think.
Sure.
So that's what I think the key is. I don't think that I need, like when I was younger, I felt like with a girlfriend or with my kid or with whoever, I needed to change your mind. I don't have discussions or debates for that. And I think if you have a discussion or debate, like you said, it's about the exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit this to embarrass you again. We have had 3 major debates in the last year. And every single one, I have changed at least moderately my view, my stance on it after talking to you. So I think to really, really drive this point home, the exchange of information, you listen to the person you're talking to, you listen to yourself, and if you really think, you might actually hear the flaw in your own argument. You have to just be, I don't know, like
Absolutely.
Get out of your own way. And that's how I do it. I just get out of my own way.
So I hear you saying like, okay, so the kind of the whole idea and like a fruitful debate, number one is just an exchange. It's a collection of information that is exchanged. And then the ability.
By equal parties.
Both people that are equally, at least some way, at least are, because like in a lot of ways, like I feel like all 3 of you guys outsmart me in some particular way. You know what I mean? Like whether it's a knowledge thing or just whatever. Like, I mean, you are so eclectic in the things that you think about. You have such a way with words. You have experience and data. Y'all don't know this, but man, Bishop Bowser will bring, no, seriously, man. Tasha used to be the one who I thought like brought a lot of information. If Tasha ever comes for you, believe me, she's going to be prepared. No, seriously, she would have a 1,000-page written thing about all the things that you've done. And that's how Bishop is when he comes to the table, how you come to the table with like facts. You actually do real research. And I think so it's an exchange of ideas. And hopefully it's, there are times where even like biblically, right? Like we say this all the time, like Bishop and I don't agree on everything biblically, but like on the essential things we agree, on the non-essentials we don't, and it doesn't matter. Like we still express charity towards one another,
Right.
and so I think that that's what it is, and I think that makes a lot of sense, man. I tend to agree with that. There are certain people on social media that I've learned now, just man, I'm just not even gonna like. You just don't even have any information. You just want to be. You just want to poke and poke and poke, and you know there's no end to the things that, and even biblically, it's like fruitless to have debates with people that don't have any end in mind. Some people just want to, and then people will come to your post too. I know that some people will come and you go look at their page and it don't be no interaction. Don't nobody never say nothing on it. So they want to come where they know that they might get some traction. I shut it down. I just go, thank you. Okay, great. You're doing great. I love you. All right. And don't say that. But Bishop, what do you think, man? How do you, because you have some very professional relationships with people in the political sphere, all the way from down here, all the way to folks in Sacramento. You're quite traveled in your experience with folks, and I think the people that you may travel with, that you're actually on the plane, and other people that you're going to Sacramento and Philly and Chicago and all that, there's probably a good chance that a lot of the folks that you actually spend a lot of time with probably believe the same things that you do because of just some of the organizations that you belong to. But how do you do that when you're like with the mayor or when you're with a senator or somebody that you're sitting with? Like how do you disagree with folks to the capacity that you do, or just disagree in general? How do you do that?
Well,
and be amicable, or are you?
Because
you big, you don't have to, like all three of y'all, you don't have to agree with nobody.
If it's a politician, I try to educate them. I don't, try to debate with them. I try to get them to understand exactly what's happening and what's going on on those issues. I'll give you an example. This is about a year ago, whenever it was, but we had met with Summer Stephan, district attorney, and that's when we were talking about asking her if she was going to support AB. Was it 953? I think it's AB 953. No. 392.
Well, it changed because it was something else before.
Yeah, so it has to be early part of this year. I think it was because we were talking about, or maybe it was last year. I don't know when it was, but it was that bill. And she was, I think it was AB 392 because she was talking about some of the arguments that other officers were using. Well, it can put officers in danger and blah, 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 talking all these different kind of things. And one of the things that I was sharing with her is that because she was talking about a person, what if a person have a bat? What if a person have a knife and all these different kind of things? I said, well, when you look at the data, it's rare that a police officer get killed with a bat or with a knife. Most times they get shot or killed, they get killed with a gun. So, to try to use those arguments and say that if a police officer shoot, because I guess what she was trying to say, if a police officer shot and killed somebody and he didn't have a gun but might have had a knife or might have had a bat or whatever, the way the language was written, they might be held accountable for that. And my thing, and so I tried to educate her on it. Then when I told her about this, she said, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that." So that's that's what I try to do. The other thing is I try to avoid with some people. I try to, on the professional level, I try to avoid those controversial issues. If it's religion, I don't want to, because like you said, at the end of the day, you're going to leave believing what you want to believe, and I'm going to leave believing what I want to believe. So I don't really want to waste my time to get into it with you about that. If you say something that I disagree with as far as politically, as long as, like you say, hey, under my roof of what goes on here, this doesn't impact me, going whatever, do your thing. It doesn't matter to me. And then sometimes I'll say something, but I'll say it from a perspective of my belief system, right? Because yesterday at church, I have some white people who go to my church, and a couple of them are Republicans who voted for Trump, and one of the white brothers, before service got started, he said, I agree with what Trump did. In referencing killing the guy over there, assassinating the guy. He said, that needs to be done. He just came out of the blue and said, I guess just trying to spark conversation with me. I said, I'm against war. I just put it like that. He said, well, he did this to prevent war. I said, I'm against killing people. And then finally, he kind of back away. I just told him, hey, where you coming at me with this? I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from and what I believe about this and so on. And so, because I understand in politics, even, with wars and things like that, sometimes folks in politics and in the military and wars and things like that, people got to do what they got to do. But my personal conviction, I'm against those things, right? And that's where I stand with that, regardless of, what's happening, what's going on in the world. Even if I might support a president that went to war, but I don't agree with you on that. But, as long as we can still find common ground on other issues that I think you're addressing that quid pro quo.
Yeah.
You're
said that. Bishop said that. Yeah. Well,
But yeah, so with me, it's when it's professional, it's professional. If there's a time to educate, I'll try to educate. Some issues I try to avoid because I know it's going to create an argument and a debate, and I just don't have time for it. But then there's other time I will say something to frame the narrative because there's other people listening, and I might say something to frame it not for you, this person who I know is going to argue, but for the other folks that are listening.
Well, can I add something real quick?
yeah, of course.
I think the biggest thing that people do and say now when it comes to dialogue is they do it to get a reaction out of people because then they get to judge the reaction. But the better you are at navigating that, it says more about you than it says about them or whatever the subject matter is. That's why I really try my best to, take it easy when I respond to people who are just woefully out of touch with what
because then you
is.
become the person that they're saying that you are. You qualify. Look at you, a monster. You an animal. All you
validate
people.
all this nonsense that they spit. But the biggest thing though, and I learned this a long time ago, never pass up a teachable moment. Especially when you know something that you know that they don't know. You have to have the patience and the humility to be like, you know what? Let me educate you on this. When it's all said and done, here's really why that, and then I try to base it on something that's actually real to tie it together. Because a lot of times people say stuff, and if it's to me, if it's out of context, you sound like a lunatic. Period. I mean, you sound like a homeless person on the corner begging for change, just babbling. It's like no, everything has to have its context for it to make sense and be relevant, especially when you talk. Because a lot of people, like the guy who said something to you about war and killing him, first thing I will say is, why are we talking about that in church? We in church. We in church. Really?
Can we worship?
Exactly. Hey, look here.
Why you want to dampen the spirit, man?
You really trying to mix politics with religion right now?
Exactly.
And then, if you insisted on furthering that, then sure, I educated him as politely as I knew how. But the first thing I would address is context. Like, you really in church saying that? Really?
But again, it shows you the ignorance. Who is this dude? Who is this guy that we've never heard? Who is this new Osama bin Laden that you probably could do a reference to see how many times his name's been mentioned in the news for the last 5 years? They just got this guy out of the blue. But yeah, here's this guy that needed to happen.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny.
I wouldn't even know.
It's funny, and it's funny. A couple of things that I thought.
They could have killed my uncle and been like, it needed to happen.
But that's
Exactly.
People say that all the time. It's just like, you know what?
Yeah.
He's speaking on something you're learning about.
Right. That to me, I'm like, man, I was trying to do a Google search. I'm not 100% sure how to do it, but I was trying different ways to Google, like,
to see if his name has been mentioned.
Did you say that earlier?
Yes.
And I was like, man, let me go back because I'm like, dude, nobody talked about this guy, and then folks would be like, well, it's secret. And somebody said today, and I guess, and this is how you really know that Trump is tripping, because Fox News has been clowning him about this war. And they even said, dude, he's not
been on nobody's radar.
You know why?
They like even Donald Trump don't know who this guy is.
Because the people who work at Fox News and run Fox News all got kids. And their kids is in the military.
Isn't it funny now?
Right.
Isn't it funny
now your kids is getting packed out, about to go over there and deal with that.
They have the draft.
I'm gonna call Gary.
Now their kids are Muhammad Ali.
I'm gonna call my boy. What's up, Gary Davis? Oh man, you know, hey,
St. Louis G.
St. Louis G. So
What do you?
he said he hates the texting and stuff. So I said,
Okay,
man, let me just call it real quick because Gary,
call the show.
Well, here's and I thought this was a good time to call my boy because we used to have debates like this in the barbershop all the time. Gary was a barber that worked right next to me, and Drew used to come in and spend the whole day there. And Drew wouldn't. He would
do that too.
He would just get his haircut, or wouldn't even get his haircut. He would just show up and come and buy Gary and I lunch and just whatever. But one of the things Gary and I used to have these very heated, like Gary was talking about this stuff 10, 12 years ago, like these kinds of issues. And I would have, if it would have been 12 years ago, I would have been supporting Donald Trump. Like I was, that was my mentality back then. And Gary used to say things to me like some of that, like, and Gary's a little bit older than me, but he would say things and I'd be like, this dude is out of his mind. And now I can see that I was actually out of my mind. And he used to say something like, man, you know, you need to learn more or whatever. And I just remember calling him one day and Gary was like, it's a trip to hear something to the effect of it's a trip to hear you talk like this because it was polar opposite of what I actually believed before. But what do you want to say about that, G? I just want to give you a chance to say something, to say what's up to the folks, man, because got a lot of love for you, man. And so what did you want to say, bro?
Much love to everybody sitting up there, man.
Right on.
What's love to you?
Upward. You said sitting up there. I said upward. Why you gotta get on this live TV and talk funny, man? We gotta get you a translator, bro.
Hey, you know he's not. You know he's not.
One of the things that I'm gonna give you perspective on me right now, like as far as you saying with the dating and things, when I moved back to California to Dago, when I moved back to Dago to St. Louis, man, it seemed like I took 10 years going in reverse.
Yeah. Yeah. Going home or coming there?
Coming here, because you're in the melting pot out there, man. You
Okay.
get a whole bunch of different views.
Okay.
But then you come back home and it's black and white. And Missouri is misery for real because they're kind of hard set in the way they think. They're kind of hard set. It's a black and white thing. You drive around the city, 75% of the city is black.
Right.
But when you drive around and look at most of the jobs being held, you can look at any street group. Out of every 30 people out there, you might see one black person.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
And then I think didn't they just vote in a white mayor or something like that? You got like 94% black there, something crazy, right? Is that your city?
you know how they set up the zones, brother.
Yeah, I just heard about something like that there's like a 94, I thought it was St. Louis, 94% black or something, and couldn't even get a white politician to run. And maybe it wasn't St. Louis, but it was because two brothers stayed in the race too long and took some of the votes, and this white woman, old white woman, won by 500 votes. Anyway, it might not have been St. Louis, but whatever.
Well, that's generally the story. Well, right now we have a prosecuting attorney who's going after dirty cops.
Oh, okay.
And she stays in the news.
Okay.
With the disagreements, with everybody going after her, they don't think she's supporting the police. Well, she's supporting them, but on the same token, she's calling out those who are not good police officers.
Right.
That's the accountability.
Yeah, that's all we're talking about. But getting back to your subject, which is looking at how you deal with people with differing views and try to basically all I've ever done is say, okay, let me pull up a little history for you, because that's what we do is repeat history over and over again.
Right.
That's our main goal right now, is trying to not repeat the history that we've seen.
Right.
That we know our families have endured.
Right.
So when we pull up the history and use that as a basis, and you can say, okay, now when you put A, B, and C together, this is what your outcome is going to be 99.9% of the time.
Right.
And so with that being said, you got people that are, they will have on the MAGA hats, the T-shirts, and ready to march and stuff
Right.
and all the rest
Right.
of that stuff. But when you work with them on a daily basis and you tell them, okay, all of that stuff that you're stumping for, you're not in that upper economic group.
Right. You're not even benefiting for the stuff that you're supporting
At all.
Right. You're going to be the one that falls off also. So what you try to do is enlighten it. And if you talk to them and you can't enlighten, that's when it's time to end the conversation with my favorite words. W-O-W. Without words. All I say is, wow.
Hey. So, one of the things, Gary said, the only thing I do, you know how many times Gary has invited people out to the parking lot and all that? Like,
Gary,
right. He's like, well, I just try to be diplomatic. Shut up, man. You lying, bro. Now you lying. We don't allow lying on our show, bro. You know what I'm saying? Gary be like, hey, homie, Gary be trying to take people to the parking lot. That's what Gary want to do. Gary want to take people to the parking lot. That's what he used to want to do to people.
I'm 55 now, bro. I just
Oh, you just gonna cut
And
him?
all of a sudden you cutting folks. You know what I'm saying?
I think he brings up a great point though.
What is it?
The fact that most of these white folk don't benefit from the politics of
Of course
the right.
not. Of course
So
not.
why are they? Why do they subscribe to it? It's tribal for them as it is for
I might
us.
be poor, but I ain't black.
At the end of the day.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
At
Like
the end of the day,
I might be homeless, but at least I ain't black. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's Mississippi for you.
yeah. Oh yeah. That's
and where he is, I bet you half of the black people, if not more, watch Fox News.
St. Louis, yeah.
Well, or even if they don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to have an informed opinion if you're not willing to show up and do anything about it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you look at like what happened with Councilmember Montgomery's race here or whatever, everybody in the world was against her, but the people showed up.
Right.
They showed up, and that's how they ended up winning. And we don't usually see that. And when you have high pockets of black people, you should have high pockets of black leaders.
Right.
And you just don't. You just don't. You know what I mean? And it's like we talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago when if you put a black politician's photo up next to somebody white and they both could be dressed up, it just by default, we trust the white politician. We just automatically just have this, I don't trust you, without giving any kind of context or whatever. People are already dismissing people. Somebody
100 years of
oh yeah, somebody said today or this weekend to Tasha, and I'm going to get to some of your points too, Tasha, in just a second. Someone said to Tasha on Twitter this week, and Gary, just so you know, Tasha Williamson, you may have met her virtually. She's running for mayor here in San Diego, but somebody was talking to her. On Twitter, they were having a conversation. This dude brought up the fact that you don't have a website, so you don't even have a website that's like actually fully functioning. How do we know? How can we trust you to run our city? And it's like, why would you even ask a question? Like, if you think somebody's nice webpage is like like if you're that juvenile and I understand the sentiment, but it's like, dude, like when you have grassroots campaigns, like where you don't have the millions of dollars worth of special interest money that you can call on because you're doing favors, they're doing quid pro quo but the problem is the people that Tasha helps and wants to help don't have that kind of money. They're the ones that need the services that are going to be forgotten about later on or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, it's just crazy. So I don't know.
Hey,
Yeah.
can I ask what you say?
Yes.
Okay, you got 4 different people here on your panel right there.
Yeah.
Plus me. Right?
Yeah.
So if we just ask right now amongst that group, okay, what would be the 10 requests that you would have on an agenda
Okay.
for any politician that you were to put your support behind? Now, I've asked this question amongst quite a few different people, and just coming to a final conclusion to say, okay, these are our 10 most important things that we have on our agenda. That's, to me, that's one of the first things you do when you say, hey, this is what we're pushing.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you share with everyone. And going back on what you just said about that website, now you're showing your age a little bit. Because one thing about it, you get somebody at www.anything and say, hey, I can't go into depth with you right now, but everything that I stand for is written up and shared right on there. And I address it and I go through and look, because that's what a lot of people are doing right now when they're running these campaigns.
Yeah.
Even if they don't answer.
So you're saying, so are you saying like a young person that is like really been raised by the tech age or whatever that is actually an important thing for somebody young to be able to get the information. Whereas for me, like, I don't really care about that. Is that what I heard you just say? Kind of,
That's
maybe?
basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
I agree with that. It's legitimate. I guess if you after a certain point, if you give somebody a card, even the first thing anybody's gonna do with any kind of business, even a barbershop,
Right.
they're going straight to your website. But I get your point though. Your point is a little bit more philosophical about the legitimacy of it. In other words, you're just gonna dismiss totally the fact that it could be just a pile of junk on the website. It's
Yeah.
It's controversial, but I get that. But at the same time, it's too bad that the legitimacy is still illegitimate. Potentially.
Yes, I understand. I understand the need to be able to be reached via the web. But I understand that. I guess for me, what I'm saying is that we can't just keep. I think with like as we advance technologically and all this kind of stuff, like as we do that, we just like kick the can down the street. Like the problems still never get addressed. It's like, okay, so you got a great website. Okay, well, like Donald Trump had a great website. Well, 20 years ago, presidents didn't have great websites or whatever. They still made false promises and nothing ever got done. And now people have really good websites and nothing's going to get done. And so for me, it's like we have to have like there needs to be a bridge. There needs to be some kind of a bridge between like what's actually going to happen and like, okay, so you got a big flamboyant website that has sparkles and all that kind of stuff on it or whatever. Like, so what? And to me, it's just we're allowing things to just be kicked down the street or whatever. So, and I don't want to forget about our, for the sake of time, I don't want to forget about.
But I want to add something to that.
Go ahead. And don't cough on my water ever again, okay? Can you do that? No, can you not cough on my water?
I cleared my throat.
Man, where you from? Chicago?
So, yes. So I don't think
that's why. I forgot to pat you down before you.
That's cold, man.
I don't think a website gives anyone credibility.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
It's like a business card. I don't care. I see you going.
Anybody can set that up.
Right. Right. The biggest frauds and hustlers got all that. They'll pass the eye test all day long.
Right.
I wouldn't place too much, merit, if you will, into a fancy website. Period. Because I mean, to me, because if someone says to me, and here I'm, and if I'm a crooked person, and well, you got to have a website for me to take you seriously, I'm gonna go hire the best website builder I can find, and then lay all my crooked agenda on you, and you're gonna eat it hook, line, and sinker because you told me what I needed to do to satisfy your, issues that you had before, so you can believe me. Period. I mean, 25 years ago, people didn't have websites.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I just, to me, yeah.
Understand that I'm not saying that this is the end all.
Of course.
I'm saying that added to.
Of course.
What you can is more sharing.
It's like it's a both and. To you, it's kind of a both and. It's not either or thing. It's a both and. Like you should. I get what you're saying. I guess what I was saying is that I just see this idea of like what we consider to be a legitimate candidate is based on something like that. Like you don't actually see the things that they're actually doing every day. Like they're on TV lying about certain things, but like you don't even care about that because they got a great website. Like that's where your brain is. Right. It's like, dude, get out of here. You said something, Drew, real quick, and I want to go back to this. Okay. I think it's important. Is about accountability. You talked about accountability. And you talked about, and so I wanted to say that one of the things that Claude Anderson talks about, one of the 3 principles that he talks about, that in order, like he says, we don't have black communities. There are no black communities. We don't have any black communities. If you drive anywhere else in the country, you have black community. You can see Chinese, little China. You can see Chinatown. You can see Koreatown. You can see Japantown. Whatever. You can see little Italy. You can see little Cubana. You can see Africatown. You can see whatever it is. You can see everywhere else. You can see. You know exactly where you are. But where is the black town? There is no black. There are no black communities. But what you have is black neighborhoods. Yeah. What you have is black neighborhoods. And one of the things that he proposed that I thought was great. Remember when we talked a couple years ago about starting the Black Community Collective. Remember we were kicking around, that's what our YouTube channel is, the Black Community Collective, because we said we wanted to, like one of the things that came to my mind was and I thought it was my idea, but actually I got it from Dr. Claude Anderson. Yeah. I couldn't remember where I got it from, but he said 3 things, and this is where I want to, I think we need to start having these conversations. He said one of the things is you got to have strong politics, like you have to have a good political agenda. Like you have to be strong politically. You have to be able to control some of the things that are happening in your particular area. Like you have to find a way to do that. You got to have group politics and be group minded when it comes to that. He said the other thing is you got to have good capital. You got to have a good financial base. You have to have money. You have to have capital, like real money. And the third thing he said is you have to have a code of conduct. He said when people do things that aren't Correct?
They gotta go.
We don't do that here, man. Get out of here. We're going to roll our window up on you. We ain't going to talk to you no more. We're going to kick you out. He said, nowhere else do you see in other communities people able to come in and do stuff like that. And people just go, oh, it don't matter. You know, we just going to let people do things that are against our best interests. And we just going to let it do it.
Start hating on you when you try to keep them on court.
And so, hey, man. And so I was telling Layla, because she's one of the ones that's going to read the book with us. Tasha is too. Bo said Little Africa. I don't know where that came from, but you know, Bo was off the hook. That's one of the guys that I'm not going to tell your business, Bo, but that's one of the guys that used to base with us on school. And
Legendary.
yeah.
Legendary.
But I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. And I know we don't want to talk about those things. I know that that's something that we don't want to address, but I believe it's something that we need to address. That how do we deal with people? Like, number one, do we even have a standard? Is there even a standard? And then if there is, how do we deal with people that violate the standard? And I don't know, but I think that's what you were saying. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, but what I say,
Don't let me grandstand like that. And then you tell me that's not what I meant.
No,
Because I'm gonna put you out my house.
no, I got you. It's just that, you know, personal accountability.
Okay.
Right? There's a collective or, you know, community accountability, whatever, but personal accountability. I think, you know, and I'm just saying from my perspective, the biggest thing in the Black community that we need to hold ourselves personally accountable.
Each person, or we need to hold each other? I need to hold myself accountable?
Both.
Okay.
But it starts with yourself.
Okay.
Right? Think about it. If you met me 20 years ago like you did, if I wasn't serious about what I was doing, what would you say? What would you have said to 22-year-old Drew?
Oh man, same thing I said to you. Well, you were already serious, but like I was saying, man, what do you want to do with your life?
Right.
Like we're not hanging out if you're not like I ain't got time to just go
Right.
nowhere with you. I'm not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
would you have invested as much time and energy
Not at all.
into me
Not at all.
as you did?
Not at all.
But you saw my work.
You was up in there laying down taking vitamin C while you was sick.
Yeah.
And my wife was feeding you thousands of milligrams of vitamin
I
C.
came over here and all of a sudden I got sick. I was fine with that. 20 minutes later, I had
you
dropsies, everything.
No, I mean,
You're right. I didn't get sick at the house, Gary. And we had beans and what was that, ham hocks that you cooked overnight? Man, Gary can cook, man. Man, we was in that thing.
well, so I want to let's talk about that, man, and then
It's
I
accountability.
want to end on your point about looking at ourselves.
Hold on. My boy Lou says, and Lou's a great guy, just moved back to Tennessee. He said that there are no Black towns because we have no Black ownership. Which is true. You gotta own land.
Yeah.
True.
Why are we the last people to buy a house in San Diego?
Well,
There's
There's also efforts. I mean, you have to give some credence to the efforts that are being done by other groups to make sure that we don't buy in certain communities.
I don't even buy into that no more.
No.
You got enough money now, you can get whatever you want. I'm living proof.
That's a whole
You
nother
work
story.
hard enough,
That's a whole nother story.
you stack your chips up, you can buy whatever you want, wherever you want.
So
Now, maybe that
so
might have been different.
10, 15.
Let's say 20 years ago. When did you buy this house?
Okay.
20 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was anybody there making this harder or difficult for you to buy this house?
No.
Sure, you had to qualify for it, but was this like they put you through all this hoops and written
No,
right?
no, it's not. It's not.
You had
it's-
your ducks in a row?
No.
You bought a
No,
house.
so-
I'm sorry, you want a house? You bought it, right?
But the problem is not that it's impossible for someone to buy a house. The problem is when you look at folks' ability, the ability to purchase a home is not there. And if you look at like Chaz been a homeowner for 15, 20 years, whatever the heck, 15 years or whatever, something to that. You mean a home? He's been a homeowner for a long time, and I've been a homeowner for almost 20 years.
Mhm.
But the problem is that like, how are you gonna there are systems that are set up that are in place
Mm-hmm.
that a majority of Black Americans don't have the ability to purchase wealth and those kinds of things. And there's multiple things that are wrong with our society that prevent Black people from achieving the things. The racial wealth gap is so crazy, and it's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. And especially when you look in California right now, most people in California, regardless, can't purchase a home. Most people that are here now have been priced out. And when you look at
I need to interject.
what's that?
Okay. Going back, you're talking about having your own and owning your own community. Well, you know, I was born and raised in 99.9% Black community. So
Yeah.
okay, so right now, I'm gonna give
Yeah.
There are areas in St. Louis to where there are homes there that, of course, they need work done to them, and you literally can go buy these houses for $600 and $700.
Right.
Okay.
You put in $5,000 to $10,000 in this home, and it's livable. That's
Okay.
it. It's livable. Okay, but in that same area, these are the areas where the graduation rate is 50%.
Right.
These are the areas where the unemployment rate is. I work for the school district I work for, right?
Yeah.
It's 99% free lunch. That's based on
Okay.
income.
Okay.
In that area.
Yeah.
So to start your own community, you know, we can't start our East Lake. I'm gonna just put it in San Diego. But sometimes we can start our coast. If the coast still exists, I ain't been out there so
Yeah. You talking about the coast, like the Crip Coast?
Yeah.
Oh, you speak. So
Ocean View.
Bishop Bowser was one of the originators of the coast.
No.
Is that different?
Okay.
West Coast?
He talking about
He talking about West Coast.
the beach.
No,
right?
he talking about West Coast. You talking about like the coast, like Market Street, the coast, or you talking about the coast as far as like the beach?
They talk about
Like Lou's Market Coast.
Yeah, hey, that's
Brims.
well, okay. So that West Coast that's over there in Bishop's old turf. Yeah, that's his old stomping ground.
Right.
Bishop Bowser's. But
Right.
what about it though?
But when you're talking about community,
Yeah.
to take one of those areas, and like you said, you got organizations out there that said, I brought up something to a school, and I saw it one time at a school one time. It's you go in your own community, you find these houses that need to be rehabbed, and you do them as a school project. But see, all of the schools that are inner city out here right now, guess what they don't have? Anything that you can graduate with a trade.
Of course, nobody has that, bro. That's not anywhere. They don't have that anywhere.
Hey, bro, they got that right out there at El Cap. I worked there when I did construction. They rebuild cars, they build houses. They're in the stuff advanced to where these kids leave high school with certificates.
Yeah,
They got that in prison.
they got it in prison. But you know, G, one of the things I wanted one of the things I wanted to say real quick, G, and then I want to answer a few of these. Tasha's made quite a few comments since we've been here, and I want to make sure that she participates a lot. So I want to make sure that we address some of her things. But the thing I want to say to you real quick, G, is that I think that we have to look. It's important for us to look geographically when we start talking about possibilities, because right now, like the average person in California with the job that they have could move to Arizona and still be able to get a house and live high on the hog. I could buy a second home in Arizona and not even have to get a second job to pay for it. Like there's just no question. That's one of the things me and Chaz been talking about. What's that? No, not at all. I'm just saying the cost of living there is not at all. I could get a house for $600 a month. No, I could get a house for $600 a month. That's what I'm saying. You could go to Arizona right now. Each one of us could go to Arizona right now and go buy a house, because and that's the whole point. Like, and I think it's important to talk about that, huh?
Because of that, 800,000 people moved out of the state of California last year.
Absolutely.
Still moving. A lot of black people did too. Black folks did too.
And a lot of black folks is moving
Then we
too.
move to areas where we're not concentrated. Then we move to areas that become like 1%.
Yeah. And one of the things Claude Anderson talked about that you have to look at is that anytime you get to 3 to 4% of black people in a particular community, white folks move out. And when they do that, they take all the businesses. And so people begin to think, look at these dirty black people and all this. Like, no, what happens is all the business and commerce ends up leaving those areas. And then they go somewhere else that doesn't, you know what I mean? And so it's
But
the
that's
same
part
with
of the
schools
problem, though. That's part of the problem when we talk about, because the example that the brother said when he said Little Africa, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking about black cities or black town. He said Little Africa. Little Africa is a neighborhood, and and probably a lot of the folks, even if this say it's all black folks, a lot of those homes are not owned by black people.
Well, I think they're saying Little Africa over in East Davis.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
like
what I'm
all
talking
Africans are.
Yeah,
But there's a gang.
Little Africa when I was out there, when I was banging.
I'm talking about Little Africa.
I mean,
you're talking about Little Africa, Pyru.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about Little Africa. That's real Little Africa, like in East Dago. where East Day.
Oh, you're talking about the
African community.
Right.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
see,
what my boy.
and that's a
Bones
whole
was talking
nother
about, I think.
issue that I know you don't want to get on, but that's a whole nother different issue because the when you talk about folks, the immigrants that come in, they have a different mindset in the sense of business and understanding ownership and understanding thriving and succeeding so that their community, their race or group of people, ethnicity can prosper, right? And we don't have that kind of way of thinking. And that was one of the things that Malcolm X talked about in Ballad of the Bullet when I was because he said we should control the politics in our community, right? Not only should we control the politics, but we should control the economy of our community because, you know, most of the businesses that are in our community is white folks or some other race that live somewhere else.
Right.
And when they make all that money off of black folks, they take that money into their community, spend it there.
Yeah.
And he used the example what you're just talking about. If a black person take his business to a white community, he said they won't even shop. They won't even buy from you. And he said he's not wrong for doing that because he's supporting his own, but we don't support our own. And so what has to happen, I think, you know, when we talk about our community, empowering our community and so on, is I think the key is owning the land, but doing diverse things with that land. You know, not just buying homes, but businesses, creating our own schools, all the different things that we need to have our own community. Even get to a place of where that we form our own police department, you know what I mean? And have a community where you get incorporated to be a city. Aside from whatever.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah. And then let me get to some of Tasha's.
I don't think that we trust each other. I think as
gosh,
imbeciles,
that's
we don't trust each other. We have had black groups, the Panthers and other groups. They've all been co-opted. So we have to learn. And then one more point, we also have our leaders appointed by outsiders. Who appointed Jay-Z? Who appointed
Thank you.
Sharpton? So we're co-opted. We're co-opted by blacks. Yeah. And in the end, we don't trust each other. So until we figure out how not to be co-opted by these either law enforcement groups or other interests, until we learn how to go to each other's places of business, to each other's homes, and just trust each other. Until I don't look at you standing next to my car and wonder, what is he doing? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, until we know how to do that, then.
But and let's also not forget too, right? Because I think one of the things that's super important to forget about the black community, black neighborhoods, black people. Apartheid only been over for like 50 years.
Right.
So it ain't like it hasn't been like 400 years that we've been like, okay, when y'all gonna finally get this? Like, man, the whole system was rigged against us forever, and it still is. So if you look at like if you look
at surprised, my dad you might have been around.
My dad's 86, 100% my dad was here. My dad was born in the 30s. You know what I mean? So
and the white folks are still here too.
Come on,
and the white folks
so we have to we gotta remember, yes. And so my thing is like, man, we have to remember
how do you overcome that?
Because time. It takes time, and it takes small wins, and it takes education.
It does.
I think Tasha says something good that talks about that. She said everybody supporting Trump's war who is a politician, rich to send their children and adult grandchildren to join the military. They're saying the evidence Trump has to have bombed the general was thin, which means this bombing should not have happened. Trump is trying to avoid impeachment removal. So you see the way that they're using actual wars. That's what's being alleged, is that there's actually, and you talk about like, look at the system that we're up against. What do we get to do when we realize everything is against us? And as soon as we like rally whatever little bit of a base that we can rally, they change the goalpost. And it's like, you look at like Trump get ready to make mistakes. All these evangelicals are praising him because he killed somebody. And then he goes to war to try to detract from the fact that this dude has been doing stuff against the country.
I wanted because Layla asked me a question on.
What do you think about gun control?
Yeah.
And let me just one last thing for Tasha, because she's been posting the whole night. And this is the one that I think might kind of answer what we're talking about. People want popular politicians and business professionals. I'm a very different candidate. I show up for the people. I show up for the forums. I show up for the meetings. I show up for the businesses. I've done things they thought I couldn't. Of 9 candidates, I'm ranking 3rd. I'm the only one talking about what impacts people. People believe in me and some don't, but all can't deny that Black, brown, indigenous, and immigrant people would not even be a huge part of the conversation in the race if I was not speaking up, while the others are talking about scooters, right? Short-term vacation rentals. They don't even believe the issues with the police in San Diego.
That's what concerned the white folks who's going to bring the vote, and that's the issue that you got to get on is what's going to bring the vote for you. And what I would say, you know, and I hope that Tasha is getting more volunteers to work on her campaign. Yeah. Because you got to get out there and start knocking on those doors, making those phone calls to those folks on the other side of 8 and on this side too, that can vote and so on. And because if you don't, then because with the way these folks are playing it, and that's why you don't hear too much, but they put their little signs out there and they're of course active on social media, but they know that people are going to vote based on name recognition. Right. And so if you really want to win and give them some pressure, you really got to step it up and start getting out there, knocking on doors, raising the money that needs to be raised, getting those signs out there, doing that phone baking, getting a large crew of volunteers. I said before, all those people that's pumping Tasha and pushing her, say, hey, go Tasha. They need to join as a volunteer and get on there and get going if they want to see her elected. Because otherwise, you know, it's good to have this conversation about it, but it's not going to impact the election if you don't really get out there and,
I think it's
run a campaign.
But I think it's difficult when you're a candidate that doesn't and not having all of the things necessary and have the ability to mobilize. Like you look at Bloomberg and some of these other ones, the way that they run their campaigns is they pay people to go out and do stuff. And when you're running against candidates like that, like if they took out all special interest money and did away with all that, we would see very different campaigns when people don't.
Let me give you an example. I'm talking locally, and because let me give you an example of Wendy Weecraft that's running for office. Because when I was talking to her, she was like ranking real low as far as raising money. Everybody else out raising her. So I was like, oh, they're going. But then I was talking to somebody else talking about how she's like in the top rankings as far as people consider electing her. But every day they're walking and knocking on doors. Every day they're phone. They're really. I talked to her, and then she said that she's really pushing it with the people.
But she has the Moms Demand Action people. She has a humongous base that support her because of the things that she stands for.
Volunteers. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
She deals with a lot of folks.
And so does Tasha. You got a lot of volunteers. You got to get those volunteers out there.
I think one of the things,
let's get it going.
And we need to. I think it's about helping her to be able to do that. Yeah. Sometimes it's about that. And so let's go to what you were just saying right now about Layla saying, what do you think about gun control? And then
I wanted to answer that because I know we talked about that before.
And then I'm going to talk about.
I don't want to say gun control. I want to say gun violence prevention, right? Because what we're dealing with is preventing gun violence.
But she asked about gun control,
and it's the same thing, but it's how you frame it. Because what ended up happening, like you have a gun, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, I got other friends. I got brother go to one of the guys we just talking about. He has a gun, right? And he has license to carry because he's security and things like that. So we don't have no issues with that. You know, at least I don't as far as gun violence, but we want to address the violence that is happening. Like when you talk about personal responsibility. And so that's what we talk about in our community, because what I want to address is the community gun violence, right? And so there's several things that I believe. I believe that number one, we've got to get a hold on residential, because a lot of residential burglaries. And we got to get these residents to secure these gun owners to secure their guns so that when they're not home, somebody breaking their home, someone can't break in their house or break in their car and steal the gun. And then that's on the street and they're getting killed with that gun. That's what I'm talking about when you talk about gun violence prevention or what someone said gun control. On the other end, I understand from the perspective and so I disagree with some of the issues when it comes to gun control in the sense of laws that have been passed and things like that. Because from my perspective, the way I feel about it is that when you criminalize a community, and this is one of the things I was sharing with a gun, I'm assuming he was a gun advocate, and he was trying to come in on me about the community. Oh, well, go to the gang houses. He said, go to the gang house and tell them to turn their guns in. And so I came back at him and said, hey, look here, man. I said, number one, most gang members with guns don't commit crimes, because he said with guns getting good. And I said, and most of them that have guns for their protection, right? And I've seen people who got in fights and never put out their gun. So, you know, don't try to make it seem like we're violent and criminals and things like that. You need to focus on it, because whenever people talk about guns, that's kind of where they start. Even when laws are passed, that's where they start looking at is the Black community and start enforcing laws on folks in the Black community. So I do feel that the law that restrict people from getting guns is too broad. When you talk, because that's one thing Bloomberg said, that they're criminals. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what? Because that's what people focus on, right? I think that if, where the law should really be at is that if a person committed a gun crime, like use a gun in a robbery, burglary, whatever, shot somebody, whatever, those folks should be kept back from getting guns. But if a person had a drug problem, never ever had any type of violence in their history and things like that, nonviolent offenses, I don't think even if it's a felony, they shouldn't be holding that against people. And I think that law was made and is discriminatory, it's racist really, because it's against Black people. So I really believe that some of those things need to be changed. I don't know how it's going to be done, but on the other end, the issues that we have in our community, if we're going to address and take responsibility for that, there's some issues that we got to address. And but it's not just policy as far as changing laws, but it's also the programming and organization, the programming that we have in our communities, right? And the lack of resources that we have in our communities underserved to really address a lot of those issues. And so we got to also address that. But I think the primary focus is, when you want to address gun violence prevention, is dealing with people's behaviors. It's an individual choice that every individual is making, and it's about personal responsibility. The only way you do it, you got to get to those, which is a small percentage that's out there doing that.
Well, I think,
and we got to get to those.
I think that, to me, I agree with all that. I think just wanted to highlight a couple of things, and I want to finish on the point that Chaz made. But I think what I'm hearing, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but we talked about quite a few things, but some of the major things, though, like I think in really addressing, let me just say this, and tell me if this makes sense to you all, but like, I think when we look at all these issues, we talk about accountability in the community. We talk about home ownership. When we talk about gun violence and gun violence prevention, when we talk about accountability in general, when we talk about politics and quid pro quo and all these other things, like I think it's important to realize that there is a system design, I believe, that we've been systematically pushed out with the ability to be able to participate in the same way. There's so many other layers when you're Black to be able to participate in the political thing, because there's so much against folks there, and there just is a lot. There is a system that is not designed to favor Black people, and it's just something. Now, can we overcome it? Yes. Are we able to do that? Yes. It's going to take time. That's why I think it's important to realize we're 50 years away from apartheid. But I also believe that there are some things that we can do to help home ownership and to do I think if you look at it's possible, but I think there's so many things, even in my own personal life, that I didn't have as barriers to, that other folks might deal with, that I didn't have the same particular barriers or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I've seen a lot of other folks. I know a lot of brothers on my job. Everybody that I know that's Black, that's in my career field is a homeowner. I mean, it's so like there are, for the most part, ain't nobody renting houses and stuff like that. So I know that if you get into my line of work or whatever, that you can do it. But now you got a problem getting into the line of work or whatever, because they're creating so many barriers for you to even get in to my line of work or whatever. And how do I know? Because I'm the one that has to deal with it every single day. That's how I know. You know what I'm saying? I know that that's the way it is. And so I just think like there's just things that are in the way of folks being able to participate fairly. And I think we have to really look at that, and we have to stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe of saying just quit being lazy. Yes, there is an amount of laziness, and I think that community accountability would stop that. Right. But there also is some systematic things when you start looking at, if you got caught stealing when you was 12 years old, there was some bubble gum, you had a misdemeanor, that could actually stop you from getting certain kinds of jobs. And so when you start looking at like erasing the ban the box. You can't put the felony box because they throw your application away right away. Like there's certain things that are being done to be able to address some of the ways that systematic criminalization has happened against Black and brown communities and whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that that's important. Last thing I wanted to, if you guys don't have anything on that particular thing, I just wanted to end with something that you said, Chaz. That's probably a really good segue into this. Sorry, my dog needed to get out. A really good segue into this is, we talk about having problems, and like you made a good point the other day on your Facebook post. Hey Gary, you still there? Gary's 60 years old. He might be over there asleep. I'm gonna hit you back, Gary. I'm gonna hit you back, man. I'll call you again next week, Lord willing, man. I keep forgetting you here. You need to go. You need to go to bed. You got to get up early, huh?
Whatever, dude. It's a 2-hour difference.
You want to stay on?
I'm still on here.
Oh.
Hey, before you get to that, I know we kind of went right past it, but I did. It's for y'all right now. give me just one thing that you think would be super important for that agenda.
So you saying like say that now? Like what would be something that would be?
Oh, I'll tell you right now, law enforcement oversight.
I was just about to say, we might not even need that many. Let's just start with
The,
three.
the biggest
The
issue
ones that
in the
hurt
black
us and
community
everything else,
to me
yeah.
is police brutality.
Yeah.
For me, my biggest thing is dealing with like prison reform and dealing with formerly incarcerated
Mm-hmm.
and their
Okay.
ability to be. And that is part of police oversight. You know what I mean? Is working on reentry issues,
And education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Equal education.
education.
Same thing like you said. Everything, we're free, but somehow it's like Peppermint Patty. Was it Peppermint Patty holding the ball when Charlie Brown would try to run up and kick that ball, and she would lift it up, and he would do a flip and fall on his back? That's how black people are in America. We see it, and we go for it, and then they lift it up.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think, you
We're
know,
free, but we ain't really got nothing coming.
right.
one other, because you already mentioned police reform, because I know that's in privilege justice reform. I think the other thing is that we need at least for blacks, and it should be focused specifically for black people, is a program that is designed and set up specifically for blacks to help them, to teach them and train them and educate them on how to start a business and to mentor them through that process, to get with these banks so that they can get loans to black entrepreneurs and black business folks that want businessmen and women that want to start businesses. Teach them how to, that they have to have this collateral, have to have all these different things to be able to start their businesses and so forth. I think that we need a program that's designed specifically for that, to empower black people. And I would like to see something like that on the agenda also. Because a lot of times, and the problem that has been most of the time when we talk about a black agenda is, politicians will address your issue in the sense of saying something that, but they'll say for everybody or for minorities or people of color or whatever they were saying, like, well, that's not specifically, and especially black people. Well, no, we need to have something that's specifically designed to address our issues. And
So I don't know if that answers your question.
That's a whole show, right?
We'll talk about that. And because just for the sake of time, because we are running out of time, and I do want to talk about something that I think makes a lot of sense, and that is, when we look at fixing issues just in general, right? You talked about, why don't you frame the question that you made? But I think there's a personal accountability, just kind of going back, and I think let's cap it on this or whatever. Let's end on this particular topic, but it's about personal accountability and this notion that we can have issues without actually having to look at our issues and actually having to do anything about it. And we just sort of just accept them and just kind of go like, whatever. And I think it lends itself to the weakening of the frame of Americans, because now we've lowered the standard where nobody really has to change. You could just have all kinds of problems that are going to lead to more medical problems and everything, and you just go, hey, it's just the way it is. But can you kind of talk, Chaz, about what
it was personal? It was really personal, but for me, it's just kind of like looking at how social media, especially, has just kind of created this. Like social media has become like this therapist, and people are like really embracing like this self-love, but it's love of their quote unquote their imperfection. And I see now, instead of people really striving to become better people, there's this new movement where people have decided to just somehow embrace the sheer desire to not change. And then they expect everybody else, like say a love interest or family members, to love them despite. And I'm not saying that we would not love people despite their shortcomings, but just this desire to not change, just to decide I love myself as I am. I personally have been going through, tremendous amounts of self-imposed and outside imposed things over the last few years, very well. And there's no way. Like I just am like at a personal disgust level, and I said I've got to change this. And I didn't know how at first, and I've gone through all kind of levels, but I just have a real disdain for this weird internet counseling where people post half-naked pictures of themselves or to look for adulation from people they don't know. It's sick. Yeah. And like you said, it's gone even beyond psychological. It might be going into physical now. So I don't know. I'm on a movement to self-improve, and I think everybody else needs to get some of that movement. We have to stop embracing imperfection as if somehow it's imperfection is sexy.
And I think,
sexy.
but I think what the thing that struck me, and I totally agree with this, and we sort of talk about this too in kind of a roundabout way. I personally think a lot of that is I personally think a lot of that, like, I just am what I am and just accept me how I am, is the philosophy of the folks of the dominant culture that has the ability to move the goalposts. And the problem is, if you're not a part of the dominant culture, you don't get to move the goalposts. And what happens is that when we start to buy into that philosophy or whatever, it weakens the fabric of other, like the way that Black people have overcome this far in all these years is by having to fight and go against the grain.
Doing the hard
Oh
work.
my goodness, dude! You don't get to just be like, "Hey, man, it is what it is. I'm just gonna stop trying now too and just join it." You don't get to join the parade, homie. Guess what happens? You're gonna die. You're gonna get left in the cold. You're gonna get whatever, and your family's gonna suffer. Guess what happens when they get to just accept their thing and go? I'm no longer gonna say that I'm overweight or that I'm whatever. Like, why? Like, if what you're doing is something that's going to lead to, it's like if I smoke cigarettes and whatever, I'm just like, man, it don't matter. Like,
I'm a smoker.
And you guys just let me do that, or you let me do something that had the potential to be harmful to me, and you just let me do it.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense for me to, and what you said that was powerful is to embrace that to the point of, I'm not even going to work on it. Like, I'm going to just accept this unhealthy life, and you better accept it too. And then what happens with all these other things that you don't accept, which kind of ties into the first thing that we talked about, is that you get there's a mob mentality to come against you because you don't accept it. And who are you to shame me and body shame? And what I'm not doing it. I'm saying you got high blood pressure, like you're going to have a stroke. And then what's going to happen is you're going to veer off the freeway because you're going to die in your car. You're going to go off the freeway, you're going to kill somebody in your car. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about. Like, so there is something about, hey, because I'm not physically where I want to be, but I got to admit that. And I got to look at it. And the way that I've changed is, and it's part of what we talked about the other day. I need to change some things about my life. So I like the fact that you did it. So let's end on that. Like, what does that look like? What do y'all think about? Do you guys kind of get the point of like what Chaz was saying?
Oh, for sure.
And then let's end on that. Let's all, maybe you guys say something about it.
I think we all,
And Gary, you go after Drew.
I think, having the right support system in place.
Okay.
Having someone that's also going to, hold you accountable for the things that you want to improve for yourself. If you got a support system in place, right? Because we're all human, right? And the human element is to fail or at least make a mistake. The right support system in place helps you, kind of stay on that path to to get to where you want to be, which is the best version of yourself.
Right.
Period. So I think identifying that you have an issue is probably the most important part. Then after that, you tell it to someone that you trust who's going to hold you accountable for that. Period. And then it's just like having your own support system. When people see you start to kind of slide or whatever, they'll just be right there like, hey man, you got to stay with it. You got to stay on top of it. Because if you got someone to hold you accountable, even when you're not doing it, they should be right there to be like, yo, we gotta, let's get out of that, toxic cycle. Let's get out of this, bad habit that you're doing and get back on the right path. Period. That's why personal trainers make billions of dollars a year.
Right.
That's why professional athletes still have coaches.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Show me a better golfer than Tiger Woods over the last 25 years. He's still working on his swing. Right? Like, huh?
I'm just piggybacking off you.
Jump in there.
When you said accountability is that's the first part of it. Everybody has to be held accountable, all of us. But a lot of people understand where they are. They understand where they need to go. But you have to acknowledge first that, here's my problem. Here's my problem. And then that accountability comes in to where, okay, I know my problem. Now what is the next step to do to fix it? And that's what we're talking about. Every subject that y'all brought up this evening. And each one of them is, okay, first we got to acknowledge what the problem is. And everybody is that it affects.
Right.
Be like me as a father, a husband, the big uncle, the big homie.
Yeah.
You know, once we recognize and acknowledge that problem, that's when we move forward. And I'm just piggybacking off of what Drew said.
Cool. That's good. What do you think, Chaz? What's your thing?
That's pretty much what I said. That's it. Just change. Just work on it. Try.
Good.
Let's
On self-improvement.
Just
try. Just try.
to do it, to accept it. Do you just, what do you do with it?
For
Just,
self-improvement.
just all of that, whatever we just was talking about, like in that last thing or whatever. What is your? And then I'll give everybody a chance to. You don't get two shots. You already shot your shot. Hey. Hey, look. Here's what we gonna do to end, Gary. Here's what we gonna do, just for the sake of time.
But you know, sometimes the truth of the matter is that we just don't know which direction to go, and that's when you got to seek out somebody. And you don't seek out somebody who's just messed up as you are. You seek out somebody who's on the right line.
Right. Okay, I get it. What do you think, Bishop?
I think that if you know, just in general in life, you know, if a person does not have definiteness of purpose and plan, they're going to drift through life. And you know, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we can have success, you know, houses, cars, and nice job, bankroll money, but you're still drifting through life. What is your real purpose? And so, you know, the thing that I found is that, you know, it does take acknowledgement, but I found like struggling with my issues throughout the years. What the thing I come to learn is that I can acknowledge it all day long, and even try to change. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do that anymore. And because of habit and because of the condition of my mindset, I go right back to those things. And so the thing that I have to do is, you know, like they say, you have to unlearn something, then learn new things, you know. And so I think a lot of what we do is based on our belief system, is based on how whether you want to call it subconscious, unconscious, or whatever. So whatever way you want to do, but that controls 95% or more of what we do every day. And if we don't get it in there and get it changed in there, we're not going to do anything. I remember years ago, this is back in the 90s when I first joined, it was called Family Fitness there, 24-hour fitness. And I said, man, but I need motivation. So this guy, personal friend, whatever, said, oh, well, I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to make sure you get to the gym and all that. He just wanted me to sign up, I guess. I don't know. He called me a few times, but I never showed up, right? He finally gave up on me, right? You know, and so, and what I'm trying to say, we can have all the things that we need to help us, to push us forward. But if we don't have that mindset to do it, and if we don't have the discipline to do it, and if we don't have the focus as far as understanding our definite purpose and definite plan to move forward, you know, we should be thinking about what you want, write it down, come up with a plan, and start moving to action. Every day, work on it. And I have something I look at every day that's written on my little what's it called, drywall board, what we call dry eraser board. Dry eraser board. And it says only do those things that bring you closer to your goals. And so every day I'm asking myself, looking at my calendar, looking at, you know, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Or should I go to this meeting? Should I be engaged in this? Is this moving me closer where I want to be by the next year, next month, and so on? My greatest accountability is my wife, you know, especially on the spiritual side, you know, because she holds me accountable. She watches and observes me. If I'm not praying like I should be praying, or studying like I should be studying, or going too late to a meeting, or whatever it is, she's always on me, you know, like, you've been going to the meetings late lately. I haven't seen you pray lately. When last time you studied, you know, something like that. And it gets on me. So I have an accountability partner through my wife that really, of course, we all hold each other accountable in the community. We hold each other accountable, but someone that's up close and personal, that lives with you, that sees you every day, know the real person. So I find that that's great also, but I think ultimately we have to hold ourselves accountable. And the only way we're going to really do that is we got to change our beliefs and change our mindset, and build those habits those disciplines that we need.
I like it. Well, you know, we're going to end. Hey, Gary, just want to say thank you, man, for your addition, bro. We appreciate you. Want to do more of this year? Want to do more of like just calling, you know, just getting people on to kind of hear their views and stuff. I appreciate you, G. Thanks for always tuning in and listening to us as well. And this year, man, we're gonna add you to some more of the discussions and stuff, man, because your voice matters. And I appreciate you, man. Thanks for
calling in.
Being here,
Yeah,
yeah. And right on, man. And we'll talk to you soon. St. Louis G. All right, bro. Just I guess in closing, because we do need to go because we're well past we're not past our time. I allotted us to have 2 hours, and that's what we're coming up on a 2 hours thing. So it's easy to do when you got 4 people. Right? I just want to say, man, I really I see the value in having other people at the table to discuss things. Bishop and I talked about 2020 really being the year that, like, it's really about, because the idea for this really was about like having other people come to the table to have these discussions. This is kind of what we wanted all along, and just trying to manage all this with all the other things that I got going on in my life and Bishop got, like, but I'd love to have y'all at the table more. You're here, so you get. I'd love to have you regularly. And anytime you're back,
regular Sunday thing?
we try to. The goal is to have 3 out of 4 Sundays, and sometimes we have 2. It just sort of depends. We're not locked in, but so the goal is, like, if you're available sometimes or whatever, anytime you're in town, man, we'd love to have you, even if there's another guest scheduled. But we want to put this out to everybody else too. Like, we want to have more people on to just have this conversation. This is not about the Bishop and I. This is not like, the name was just what it was named. It don't matter. We want to have discussions with people that have their own way of thinking and that have their own philosophies, and to see how these things, see the different dynamics that we have in our community, because there's so many gems in our community that are disregarded because they don't have something. And sometimes it's just a platform to be able to say the things that they want to say. And people go, oh, wow, I didn't know that this cat thought like this. And then there's things that are created, relationships are created. So I just want to say, man, thank you so much, Drew, for taking your time to be here, man. And I look up to you, man. You a good dude. Chaz, thank you, man, thank you for being here, man, and for driving all the way from Arizona, man. We've been trying to do this.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, the show has no relevance in Arizona, but for me, all relevance. And I'm excited, like I was on our senior or something.
Amen.
Truly, like I watch you guys 500 miles away, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, now I'm right here on the block.
Yeah, I was before I came here, I was over. I don't know if Bobby was watching, but I was at Bobby's house here having a birthday party. I told him I had to come here, and I said, "Was having a guest?" And I told him about Chaz. And I said, "Chaz," he said, "Oh yeah, I see him on it. Everybody know you." He's on there all the time.
Yeah. Well, why don't you end with something to let you end with something, and we'll kind of close it out. What is something you want to, maybe what is one thing maybe that you got from that, or one thing you want to leave with the people or whatever?
Well, I want to give a shout out to somebody.
Yeah, of course.
New and special in my life. She knows who she is, so she's probably not watching anymore.
Y'all too long, yeah.
But she gonna watch it on the recap. I mean, even now, listening to some stuff you were saying, I don't know, my perspective has kind of changed on a few things. Like you said earlier, like, all of us have, like, our own really, truly individual ways of thinking. Like, politics, you probably know it all. More conscientious and spiritual thought, you know it. You know that, and then you just know people. I think you're a knowledge of people
person, yeah.
And then me, I don't know, I'm just kind of like an abstract, like, reckless thinker. You know, like I am. I know that I am.
Okay, but I get it.
But I would say dynamic.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
He's also a comedian, though. He's a stand-up comedian. He also from
the 90s. Yeah. But I think, a company like Amazon or eBay started like this. And I don't want to sound corny, but I want to get real serious. Like, I think, like, this is ultra important. And I like I told you, from the first time that I watched it, I said, you guys got something. From the name to the way the form is, you guys got something here. And I think this is like the beginning of some kind of a movement. This is where it starts. Like, it's insignificant if somebody can say this is, to start with 4 viewers, 5 viewers, and 10.
This is up to like 20-something
right
tonight, bro.
And this is something that should have thousands. You got podcasts out there. Like I told you, you got podcasts that have the most idiotic people discussing the most idiotic things, right. and they got millions of subscribers. This kind of stuff right here, this should be that. So, like, it's a true pleasure.
This is how it starts.
Thank you, man.
Builds up a little bit of momentum, right? First snowball, right? Snowball effect, and before you know it, you got people.
So everybody watching, I would tag, share.
Yes.
The fact that there's 15, 20 is awesome. But in San Diego, this should be millions, hundreds of people watching, at least, if not thousands, in the Black community especially.
Yeah.
What are you doing right? What are you doing on a Sunday night? What are you doing?
Right.
Watching 60 Minutes.
Right.
No effect on your life, hardly anything on there. But this right here, this is in your backyard.
Thank you, brother. Drewski.
Thanks for having me. I mean, any opportunity to just, come down and, speak openly about, candid about, your perspective on things, I always welcome that, just because, everything to me is a teachable moment or an opportunity to learn something new. That's, the moment, I learned in business, when you agree, you grow. When you write, you rock. So,
Right.
So, I try to, continue to, again, humble myself, think openly, open ears, open heart, open mind. And I'm just, glad to be part of this. And I can tell you, I can do this on Sundays as long as, things don't go berserk in my private life, which I doubt, but I can tell you I can be back here anytime you ask me to come back out here.
Cool.
And that's for sure.
It'll be good to have you.
Because the one thing that I want to, just to be the voice of is telling people, I don't care what's going on, you still need to do what you got to do.
Right.
Period. I don't care how tough things are, you still need to do what you got to do. If you don't know what it is that you got to do, let's figure that out first.
Exactly.
Then let's do it.
Exactly.
Because there's the only person who's going to stop you from reaching your goals is you. Or the people you surround yourself with. If your support group is toxic, let's change that. Because you still got to do what you need to do. If you don't know what that is, let's figure it out together. Sound good?
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate it, Bishop.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I'm just, honored to be among you all and to be able to share in this Sunday, our Bishop and I live streaming on Facebook and now YouTube also, right? YouTube and wherever else we may go and so on. But one of the things that I would close out, at least in my closing thoughts, and say is that I really believe that, when we talk about individual accountability and personal responsibility, I really believe that that's important. And that's what we really got to focus on. Because even with the work I do in the community and trying to help people, and you want to change a whole community and transform that community and see people prosper and doing well. But the thing that I do know is that on individual levels, people can change because God changed me. I changed, and it wasn't this type of thing where I went through this 12-year metamorphosis, right? There were things that the moment I gave my life over to God, it was over, right? Since I've been saying, I've never been in a fight before, right? Never used a gun, right? And so
Since you became a Christian.
Since I became a Christian, that's right. And never stole anything and things like that. Had a problem with my mom for about 6 months, cussing and stuff, prayed, Lord deliver me. Been married to my wife 33 years, never ever cursed at her. Never cursed at her, never threatened to hit her, anything like that. And so I have issues, but the thing I'm saying is that on an individual level, people can change. People can change. I believe that any person that make up their mind to change, they can change. And we just want to be there to help them to do that. So I'm saying it because I believe personal responsibility is important. Accountability and personal responsibility is important to see things change in our community. And it's got to start right there.
That's good. Well, for all of you, again, man, thank you all for just being here. It's always cool, man, to kick it with Bishop, man. We've been knowing each other for a long time, man, and just always good to see you out here doing what you do, man. Drew, we drove across country, talked crazy. We didn't have some incredible, insane times, man. Broke down, car almost car started on fire in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and it was crazy. I'll put it like that. This man's family, he has the craziest family, the funniest, most hilarious siblings. Unbelievable. Drew is a great dude. Genuine, what you see is what you get with this guy right here, man. He's the kind of guy who showed up one day and the barbecue was in my backyard. When I moved into this house right here, who helped me? I had one person to help me move into this house. It was this man right here. He helped me do the whole everything. Hashtag look him out. Drew Phillips.
All right.
And Chaz, man, we've known each other 30 plus years, man. And from getting, from one of our good friends being arrested at the beach to you moving across.
Wait a minute, real quick, the Florida story.
Oh man, I hadn't seen this dude in such a long time. We were going on a cruise and we were going from the airport to the rental car place.
This is him and his wife.
To go to the hotel. Yeah, and me and my wife and I think our youngest kid at that time, I'm not sure. I mean, our oldest. She was young. Yeah, and this dude
I went on a work trip from here to Florida, and I got on the rental car shuttle to go to get my car, Dollar.
whatever. Yeah.
And it was standing room only, and I stood next to some people and accidentally bumped the guy next to me with my elbow, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I looked down, in Fort Lauderdale, it's Jason.
And
So there's a reason. Now we had been out of touch. We knew each other in high school.
Oh, they're right.
We have like all the way across the country. At that moment, we were at the same So we have this belief that
it's a reason. It's a reason.
Destiny. Yeah.
God knows what He's doing. So I just appreciate everybody, man. This has been the busiest show that we've ever had. 168 comments. We've had we've had 121 logins and events. It's just unbelievable, man. So, and a lot of it has to do with us having a dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a dynamic show. I think a lot of it is the time. So thank you to everybody that participated in the conversation. We appreciate you. Thank you to those who have held on for the entire show. I'm sure that there's some. We've been at 8. We've been at 10 to 12 the whole time. So thank you all for doing that. We don't take lightly the time that people spend listening to us.
Thank you.
And so thank you for that. If you have any suggestions for show topics or people or whatever, or if you're somebody that says, hey, I think I might want to be on the show, we're going to run you through the test. You know, we got to check your credit and all that type of stuff. And then we'll be with you. But hey, as we always say, man, we love you. We appreciate you. You matter. And just know that. And we'll see you on the next time with the Bishop and I. We out of here. Peace.
God bless.
And don't cuss until we turn off YouTube.